How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella, the Kansas City Chiefs beat writer on SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. Thank you guys so much for stopping in today. We're going to dive into a interesting topic developing for the Kansas City Chiefs as the offseason continues along. As we know, mandatory minicamp is no less than a week away, and it's just that, mandatory. It is a mandatory thing where you've got to show up. As OTAs, the O and is optional for OTAs is coming to a close. Not every single player has shown up. One of those players being Trey Smith. When asked about Trey Smith, as he is awaiting, we assume, a contract extension for the foreseeable future, Andy Reid took the podium on Thursday and was asked his thoughts. Is Trey Smith going to show up to mandatory minicamp? He hasn't shown up much to OTAs, and it makes sense as to why. This is what Andy Reid said. He said, "We'll see. I don't know, to be honest with you. We'll see where it goes." Now, I understand as to why Trey Smith hasn't shown up or is in the field of maybe he doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp because he's awaiting an extension. A player who's awaiting an extension, as we've seen throughout the NFL, might not show up to, mandatory things because they don't want to risk further injury or getting injured while they're in negotiation processes with the front office in hopes to get a long-term deal. As we know, it has been no secret whatsoever that the Chiefs front office wants to extend Trey Smith. Earlier this offseason, prior to the NFL draft, Brett Veach told the media that it is no secret that we want to keep and get Trey Smith locked up for the foreseeable future. As you might recall, he spoke the same way about the fifth-year options for both Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis. As we know, George Karlaftis and McDuffie, they got their fifth-year options seemingly at the last day to where the deadline was for that option. However, there is a deadline that is needed to be met as well for Trey Smith should he be extended by the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's July 15th. Either he gets extended by then, or he will have to play on the franchise tag. The franchise tag is, they placed it on him earlier right away this offseason to where he will be making $23.4 million unless he gets an extension. If you were to get an extension, then that 23.4 gets wiped off and you have that full money depending on what it is. However, that being said, if it's a situation to where the front office wants to hold off until the extension, until the last possible minute, being July 15th, and Trey Smith would not show up to mandatory minicamp, there are fines that would have to be paid. For a guy who is set to make at least $23.4 million currently on the franchise tag, should he miss the 3 days, the first day he would be fined $17,462. Day 2, he'd be fined $34,925. And day 3, he would be fined $52,381 for a grand total of $104,768. While to a pro athlete, $100,000 is no, it's to us, to me at least. I can't speak for any of you out there. For me at least, that's a lot of money. I couldn't be even thinking about, 17,000 for example, but $104,000 getting taken out of your pocket just for not showing up to a mandatory organized football event for your franchise has something to look at. Going forward, though, there is a world where, Trey Smith does show up. If he does show up and there's no extension, there's a world that happens. I just assume, though, that he would like to get the contract extension done from a general manager standpoint for Brett Veach. It's him saying, there's no secret that we want to get him locked up doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% guaranteed that they will get a contract extension finalized. It's not just a mixture of player and front office. A lot of goes into this. The agencies, how his age, market value, how much the player thinks he's worth, how much another franchise would be offering him should he test free agency, how well can he keep his level of production up for the foreseeable future. That being said, let's transition into the market value. As it sits right now per spotrac.com, his market value, should he hit free agency, comes to about a 4-year deal worth $78 million, 78.8 to be precise, which averages out to be 19.7 per season. Then you're in a situation, if you're Trey Smith, to where you would want the security, but with the security comes the lesser pay. Trey Smith, as I've stated several times in the podcast, I just want to make sure that I'm hitting home on the money that's being that he's expected to be getting on a franchise tag is 23.4. There's a world, though, where he would take a pay cut to stay in Kansas City. As we know from him joining Kay Adams on the Kay Adams show, Up in Adams with Kay Adams, Smith doesn't want to leave. His main priority, though, for right now is focusing on football, what he can do, how he can stay healthy, what other things come into the conversation, at least from his end. He has an agent for a reason. They will get that deal worked out should they believe that it is the right deal. But the player's influence does have a say. He's won Super Bowls with Kansas City. He is one of the best offensive linemen that the Chiefs have on the roster. And seeing that Patrick Mahomes went down last season a tremendous amount, a career high for him, it's important to keep the offensive line as strong as possible. And a guy like Trey Smith, who last season made it as strong as it could be, losing him in the foreseeable future would not be the way to go, regardless of the fact that you have this young up-and-coming offensive line. But as long as they are in the Super Bowl window, they should try their best to keep the forces who are experienced, proven, up front to hold down the fort. That being said, that is the entirety of the Trey Smith situation. As I will reiterate, he and the front office must reach a deal before the July the 15th, or he will be playing on the franchise tag for the 2025 season. All right, guys. As you can see on the ticker down below, you can follow me at Dom Minchella over on X. You can also follow us at KC Chiefs on SI over on X. We post every single day. If you follow me, I post and repost. You're not going to want to miss it as we continue to get coverage for the Kansas City Chiefs in the offseason ahead of the 2025 campaign. Thanks, guys, so much for stopping in. I appreciate it. As always, Chiefs Kingdom, be kind to one another, and I'll see you tomorrow.